for those people that aren't here. So this is ninth grade. We are just reviewing vocabulary. Have a quiz Thursday. Start with Marish. Oh, sorry. Marish is marshy, marsh-like. I'm going to leave the sentences for you unless I can think of one. Anything that you'd use, the marish land, the marish terrain. Tremulous, nervous, literally trembling. Think of the word trembling. Means nervous. He's tremulous. The kid, children, you can tell they're going to cry because they're literally, their mouth starts to kind of tremble. Harbinger is a indicator of the future. Anything that's a harbinger is telling the future. Now we talked already about harbinger. Yeah, we already talked about how there are signs. They're indicators. That's not foretelling the future. It's indicators, and of course the Bible contains many of those things. So it's just that the average person who tries to use the occult to tell your future, that's prohibited. A shoal is shallow water. Down on the coast of North Carolina, there are all sorts of shoals. That are dangerous for ships, and they have to stay away from them. Insolence is impertinence or rudeness. He showed great insolence when he talked back to the teacher. Contemptuous means disdain or disrespect. His contemptuous attitude toward his enemy. Manifold means many and varied. So it's not only many, but it's many and variety of many.
Oh yeah,
so
in like greatest thy faithfulness when it says manifold witness.
Yes, it's not just a lot of, it's many and different kinds of witness. Supine is facing upward. I think in that phrase, we talked about this in Patrick Henry's speech.
Supinely on our
Right.
back.
So it's kind of an indication of
helplessness.
yes, good.
Sorry,
Helplessness.
I'm
No, that's you're helping. Helplessness or surrender if you're supine. If you're face down, that's almost like respect. That's being prone. What was the other word? It's another word we had, but this is face upward. Omnipotence, all power. Only one person has omnipotence, that's God. But you could compare things to God. How people that the government seems omnipotent, or it seems to have. It's not, but it seems to. Vehemence means passion, or power. His vehemence in his speech was noticeable. It is a noun. You could say vehement. That's an adjective. But his vehemence, his passion for something. That's how I use it. Penitence means forgiveness. Let's see, how do we put it? Remorse or regret. Penitence is remorse or regret, particularly for sin. So he was penitent about his sin. Innervate, I like that word. It means to weaken. It sounds like, and I'm going to say this, some of you will hear this and forget what it really means, but innervate is not the same thing as energize. It's the opposite. So energize, you're infused with energy. Innervate, that you are robbed of energy. So certain weather will innervate you. Certain diseases will innervate you. Azure is the color of, not that sky, but the blue sky would be the color blue. Kind of like the perfect color, maybe, like Carolina blue would probably be what God had in mind. I don't know really that is azure. I think it's a little darker than that. Noisome has nothing to do with noise. That some of you are going to study this, and when you sit down for the test, you're going to see noisome, and you have no idea, so you're going to say, it's very noisy. It has nothing to do with noise. It has to do with smell. It's an offensive smell. Noisome is offensive smell or odor. Boge is just a word. I don't even like the way it sounds. It's such an odd word. You can't find it really anywhere.
Sounds like an insult almost.
Well, it simply means it's a British word. It's a British word for trench or narrow, whatever, trench is, that's what there are 10 of them in the eighth circle. They're called boges, and it's just a strange English word. And it says here verb. I don't know why it says that. I like it as a noun. It's a thing rather than a verb. So no, I mean, rather than an action, it's a noun rather than an action.
What does the verb, how would you use the verb?
Good question.
Like you
Good question.
boge, like to dig a trench almost? Or
Yeah,
like you
I
boge?
don't know.
Okay,
I'm trying to find.
Where all the soldiers camp.
that's a noun though.
Whenever I looked it up, I came up with the Bojan Fort.
Say that again?
I kept seeing the Bojan Fort, that's all I saw.
Okay, again, it seems, I mean, I don't, if I see a word that looks English, I mean, like an American English word, but I can't find it anywhere, I always think it's a British word, because they have their own, things and slang that we don't have.
True.
Just a couple more of these. A lambent is a flickering soft, it has a couple of ideas, but think of a flame on a candle. That word lambent means flickering, softly bright. It's kind of both together, so when you see the candles on your birthday cake just flickering there, that small flame, that's a lambent flame.
So it's an adjective?
Yes,
Describe
it's an
something
adjective.
that's flickering. Okay.
Perforate means to put a hole in, but notice this is a verb, so you perforate something, you stick a hole in it, you pierce it. Simony, simony is actually, we'll get to this later, from Acts 8, it's actually named after somebody named Simon, not Simon Peter, but simony is buying or selling church influence or office, so it was a sin.
We learned this in history, I think.
Yeah, it's a sin to, like, who would do that today? Church doesn't have enough prestige in the world for anybody to have to buy something that the church has to offer. But in the Middle Ages, it was the thing, and so people would sell influence in the church, or they would sell whatever. If they did that, it was called Simon. It was named after a guy that Paul ran into who wanted to buy the Holy Spirit. He said, "What does it cost?" And Paul said, "You better back off. You deserve to die right now." But he didn't. But he actually tried to buy the Holy Spirit. I like what you're doing. You're healing people. He said, well, what's it going to cost? He pulled out some bills. Like, are you crazy? Harbinger Show. All right, we're on the other side. Lambent, perforate, simony. Ursine, you probably know that from Latin, right?
Ursa, like bear.
Bear. And finally, veneration. Veneration is respect. I'm trying to see if it means great respect. And we think of it veneration of elders, people that are older than us. Anyway, there you go. That's for Thursday, from marriage to veneration, and we'll do it one more time, but there won't be that many words. So the last one, we hope we can get to it because it'll be easier because it's fewer words. All right, so with that in mind, if you would turn in your book, we're making slow progress, and I'd say we have probably 2 full weeks, 10 classes to do what we're going to do here, whatever that looks like. So we're on Canto 5. Would be great if we could read 10, like all together. I mean, more. So that would put us about Canto 15.
What page was it?
We're on page 99, line 88. This is, again, at the top of the page, circle 2, the sins of incontinence. If we keep saying these, maybe they'll sink in. What are the sins of incontinence? I mean, what does that mean, incontinence?
Oh, incontinence and uncontrollables.
And we've seen now 2. What are the 2 examples?
Lust.
Well, actually, just one. We haven't, the other class, but we will see overeating. What was the other one?
It's like,
Well,
I was gonna say the leopard represents.
yes, good. So we'll see, this is only 4 of them: lust, overeating, overspending, and the other half of that is overkeeping, which means hoarding, and then finally, too much anger. Those are the 4 examples.
Wait, overeating can be a sin.
Well, it is here.
Yeah, gluttony, like,
Yeah, it is
What
here.
about people like, I mean, I guess it's a stupid question, but like people with, like binging disorders?
Yeah, we don't
Yeah,
consider
that's
it,
probably-
we don't consider it a sin.
Yeah, that's not-
Nobody would say that, but what is behind it that is a sin?
Shame, I guess?
it's making.
It's, no, it's like craving and
Like
desire.
craving.
Yeah.
It's like, addiction.
Addiction, it's lack of self-control, and so that's why it's a good example.
Like the ice cream.
All right, but we are with the lustful, look at line 88.
The eating the ice
All right, I need somebody to read for us, line 88.
Line 88.
Before John Carter reads,
99, line 88.
we are here. These are the characters. Remember, every circle that we get to has a geography. So what does it look like? What are the people, what is the sin that's being punished? How is it being punished? And the 4th one is, who is in there? What kind of people are in there? And we have historical people, we have all the, we've seen some literary characters that are in there, authors, just all these particular people represent the sin. But we also have people that Dante talks to. In fact, he even knows some people. He doesn't know these 2, but he talks to them. They're Italian as well. And so they talk to him. They tell him his story. Yeah.
I could've sworn I had my book in my bag. Do you have any in here?
If you can find one over there, you're welcome to borrow it against that wall there. So John Carter, it says, "O living creature," this would be Francesca, who's gonna tell her story about her lust and how it ended up sending her to hell. Yeah.
What question are we on?
We are on the back side here, we are on question 23. If we've done 22, I think we did 22. But if not, we can go back to it, but we'll start here at 23. All right, John Carter.
Yeah, O living creature, gracious and so kind, coming through this black air to visit us who in death the globe inclined pain, where the world's king our friend, and might we thus entreat, we would entreat him for thy peace, that pity so our pangs disfigurous. Hear all thou wilt, and speak us thou shalt please, and we will gladly speak with thee here, while the winds cease to howl, and they now cease. There is a town upon the sea coast near, where Poe, with all his streams, come down to rest in ocean. I was born and nurtured there. Love that soon takes hold in the gentle breast, took this lad with the lovely body that tore from me. The way of it leaves me still distressed. Love that to know love heart remits love's score. Took me with such great joy that see, it holds me yet and never shall leave me more. Love to a single death brought him and me. King's place lies waiting for our murderer now. These words came wafted to us plaintively. Hearing those wounded souls, I bent my brow downward and thus bemused I let time pass, till the poet said at length, what thinkest thou? When I could answer, I began, alas, sweet thoughts how many, and desire how great, it brought down these twain unto the dolorous path. And I turned to them. Thy dreadful fate, Francesca, makes me weep. It so inspires pity, said I, and grief compassionate. Tell me, in the time of sighing sweet desires, how and by what the love this power disclosed, and grant your knowledge of hidden fires? Then she to me, the bitterest woe of woes is to remember in our wretchedness old happy times, and this thy doctor knows. Yet if so dear desire thy heart possess, to know that root of love which wrought our fall, all be as those who weep and who confess. One day we read for pastime how in drawl Lord Lancelot lay to love, who loved the queen. We were alone, we thought no harm at all. As we read on, our eyes met now and then, and to our cheeks and changing colors started, but just one moment overcame us, when we read of the smile desired of lips, long thwarted, such smile by such a lover kissed away, he that may never more from me be parted. Trembling all over, kissed my mouth, I said the book was Galliot the complying.
Rival.
What?
Rival.
Oh, rivaled who wrote, we read no more that day. While the one spirit thus spoke, the others cried. I swooned for, wailed on me with a sound. Oh, I wrote over this by accident, or does it say a sound so, and I wrote over.
Lamentable.
Lamentable.
Lamentable. I swooned for pity like as I swooned for pity like as I were lying, and as a dead man falling down I fell.
All right, thank you. So let's go back to 22. Look at line 100 on page 100. All right, 22 asks, find an example of parallelism. Shouldn't be hard to spot. Look at line 100, 103, and 106. Each of those stanzas start with the word love. That's actually not parallelism.
Is that the one that's like repetition of the same phrase?
Yes.
I forget which one it is. Is it alliteration?
No,
It's
it's
not
not
alliteration,
alliteration.
enough this first.
Thank you.
Okay, enough,
I don't know.
No, you're good at,
But
you're good.
the parallelism, parallelism often incorporates anaphora. So you got the anaphora, circle it guys, page 100, line 103, line 106, love, love, love. See if you hear, I'll read the first two lines of each of those. See if you hear the parallelism or see it. Love that no soon takes hold in the gentle breast, took this lad with the lovely body they tore. Then skip to 103. Love that to no love tart remits love scorn, took me with such great joy of him that see. And then again, love to a single death brought him and me. So you see they're written in a similar grammatical form.
Yeah, right, isn't it like love that, I like how it says like love so soon, and then it says love that to know love, I'm sorry, love so soon, what was I looking at? Never mind, but it sounds similar in like the form of it, right? Like it goes.
Right.
Love that.
Right.
And then-
You see repetition, love that, so soon takes hold, love that, to no love tart remits, love to a single death brought. So it's similar, that makes it parallel. So that's 22, 23, yeah.
I don't know if this matters, but 101 and 104 better match with took.
That's right, that's part of it, that's right, very good. So it involves some repetition, but also some difference, but that ends up making it very much the same. Line 23, analyze Francesca's speech, 100, 101, does she seem to be sorry for her sins? Explain. Yeah,
She seems to almost have like, she never is like, oh, I regret doing this, but
Yeah.
she's more just saying like, this is what happened.
yeah, and I'm glad we're here together. It's
Right.
almost like she's glad, oh, we went to hell together, but at least we're together.
Shoot, love and sense.
So, yeah, you're right. I think it's pretty clear without me having to go back and point it out. I mean, like in line 101, she says, took this lad with the lovely body they tore from me. You know, she's still interested in him, despite the fact they sinned and went to hell. So the answer, I think, is pretty clear. No, she's not sorry, and that's a pattern for hell. I think it's probably stands up theologically too, that people in hell are never going to be sorry. If they had any of that in them, it would have shown up in this world, and if you're sorry, then you can do something about it.
Or know that that's like what they deserve, right?
Yeah,
Almost.
yes, although they're angry and they're hurting, and maybe they realize they deserve it, they still don't repent of it. Like in this case, it's like she doesn't care that they're in hell, they're just together. Look at, okay, do you know her story? Basically, did you see what happened? She tells Dante, oh, this isn't a question, but I want you to note this. Look at line 106 again. It says, love to a single death brought him and me. Then it says, Cain's place lies waiting for our murderer now. Underline that, line 107. Cain's place lies waiting for our murderer now. Cain's place is in the lowest pit of hell. Cain killed his brother. The lowest pit of hell is for fraud against four groups of people. Fraud against a family member, fraud against a countryman, fraud against a guest, and fraud against a lord, a
I'm sorry,
king.
wait, fraud against.
Okay, I don't remember if it's in this order, but these are the 4 areas of the lowest part of hell. Fraud or betraying, we'll just say that, betraying a family member, betraying a countryman, betraying a guest, and betraying a king or a lord. And this guy right here, Jen Cotty, is in the section betraying a family member because he killed his brother, Paolo, and his wife, Francesca. So even though they kind of started it, they committed adultery, they're in hell too. But he's in the worst part of hell because he murdered them.
That has a lot to say about, like, I remember Miss Brown said something about talking once, like, if somebody talks to you and you reply, you're most likely to, get called out by the teacher instead. So it's like whenever you try to rebuttal
Right.
or try to, do something to the other
That's right.
person, you always get a word.
Every basketball player, every football player knows that the guy that starts the fight, he'll never get caught. It's the guy that hits back, he always gets caught. So you're absolutely right. In a way, it's a great strategy, right? Strike first, you probably get away from it, get away with it, but it certainly, seems to be that's the case. Yeah.
So what exactly does, cause fraud can have any degree, right? So if like.
That's why I gave you
describe
4
for me-
degrees.
Oh, right, I
Right.
mean, okay,
But
so
yeah,
like
you're talking
meaning,
about, like, the actual crime.
yes, the
right?
actual crime, like Cain, like murdered his brother Abel. But when you say fraud, it can, like, it could be, like, a guest comes over to your house and you, like,
Elma.
I don't know, somehow like stab them in the back, but not literally,
Yeah.
you know?
You talk about them behind their back. That's a betrayal, but it's not murder, right?
Right.
Give them hot
Okay.
Oh, so when you
Okay,
say fraud,
but-
do you mean murder?
No, fraud is,
Okay.
fraud, the general concept of fraud means betrayal and deception. And remember, since this is all literary, and remember his purpose is to show these sins and to kind of show the difference in sins. Nobody's gonna be in hell just because of fraud. They're gonna be in hell, first of all, everybody in hell rejects Jesus Christ. The ultimate sin is to reject salvation. But then within that, you've committed all sorts of sins that needed forgiving, and you're gonna have to pay for it now. And so it's his way. So it seems like all the people that we'll meet in hell were murderers. But see, there's a separate category for just violence. That's actually number 7, circle 7. But remember, we talked about this. You murder somebody if you're at a bar, not that you'd ever be in a bar, and you get in a fight and you hit somebody over the head with a bottle like you did in the Old West and you kill him, you're not gonna get punished in the same way as if you're waiting outside after this guy insulted you and he comes out and you shoot him in the back.
Right.
They're both dead, but the motives are different and the circumstances are different. So, fraud in the last case involves, see, how did they put it?
Like premeditated kind
Yeah.
of like.
It's more like in a revenge way than,
Yeah,
like a just impulsive.
yeah, we'll talk about this later, but the 8th circle is fraud simple, and the 9th circle is fraud complex. What does that mean? Fraud simple means it's deceiving someone you don't know. It's deceiving mankind in general. For instance, if a guy, you're somewhere and they rob your pocketbook for a lady, an old lady, and they rob her pocketbook. They don't know that person. They don't hate that person. Here's a lady, weak, they have a pocketbook, and he takes it. If that's simple fraud, because it wasn't personal. He divides that from complex fraud, which is personal. That's the grandson that embezzles money from his grandmother. Same principle, but he knows his grandmother, and it's personal. He's doing this against her, and he's targeting her because he knows her, and he took advantage of her. So that was one way, I guess Aristotle did that, separate the fraud simple. The guy picks your pocket that's one thing. Your best friend gets in your locker and steals something of you, that's personal. because he knows you, and he betrayed you, he knows your locker combination, whatever. That's less severe as the guy who, doesn't know you, just found your whatever and took it.
And that's simple?
That's
all under
simple, it's
simple?
not personal.
I see.
But let me tell you this, anybody pick up on what their case was? How did these two, a married woman and the brother of her husband, how did they ended up committing adultery? They're put in this, well, this is what happened. Look at the bottom of the
She
page.
murdered.
He says, we were,
Your brother and your like that would be like.
well, look at line 127.
I might not.
Get AJ.
I'd have to.
AJ would actually.
Line 127
full-on
and
gag.
to 139. Basically, she was alone, I'll just summarize it, she was alone with her brother-in-law, and they were reading a book. It says, we were reading about Lancelot. It's an interesting choice of books, because Lancelot had an affair with Guinevere. So they were reading a book together about that affair that two other people had. It says in line 130, as we read on, our eyes met, they blushed. Line 133, they kissed, and that's what started it. And then, but the thing that I want you to note, look at the line 117. Look at line 117, guys. Line 117. Underline the word pity. Underline the word pity.
Sorry, where's this 117?
117.
She also says like I swoon for pity, like I would die.
Right, so you can do the same thing in line 141. I swoon for pity.
Wow.
All right, now that's important. That's talking about Dante. This is important because he shouldn't do that. You say, well, isn't pity always a good thing? Not in hell. Because essentially what he's doing, he's pitying his own sins. Even though they're represented in other people, he's looking at someone else's sins. And a lot of people think historically maybe this was Dante's, one of his chief sins, his lust. So maybe that's why he pitied them. But that changes. He begins to grow up. Think about the words of Jesus when he said, when your hand causes you to sin, what should you do with it?
Cut it off.
Cut it off. If your eye causes you to sin, what should you do with it? Okay, if we took that literally, there'd be nobody on earth who had hands or eyes, right? So he couldn't mean it literally. So what does he mean when he says cut the hand off, cut off the thing that causes you to sin?
Like, probably
Stop
take a
doing
step
it.
back away.
Stop it, take it seriously and treat it roughly. In other words,
Right.
don't coddle or pity your sin. I have certain sins, but I don't mind these, and deal with it severely and strictly.
Yeah, because it also says like prune off the parts that need to be.
Yes,
pruned.
and remember he went on and said, it's better to go to heaven with one hand than go to hell with both hands. In other words, this is all going to be worked out someday, and you're going to have to pay for every sin, every word, every thought you ever had, unless they are forgiven by Christ. And so that's why hell is for eternity, because you could never pay off that sin. You could never, and that's so you have to spend eternity trying to pay it off. Otherwise, you can go to Christ, who paid it off for you. It seems like a bargain any smart businessman or anybody with any sense would take, doesn't it? Let me go to Christ, and I don't have to pay for my sins. But anyway, that's a really important aspect here. So tomorrow, we've gotten through question, we're gonna go into circle 3, which is the gluttons. And there's a name there. We'll meet people, every area we'll meet people, yes. Yeah, hang on one second.
Like a general question, like for us, we all commit like multiple sins in our life.
Y'all go ahead.
Like what exactly, because we all know that, like traitors.
Yeah, it was a lot. But even like, out of all the men out there, you're gonna choose his brother over his. That's what I say.
No. all the same.
Talking about after you were driving.
Yeah, they did. When they said like, what is what makes you involved?
Right.
Like, I'm sorry.
And that's scary.
Like,
Brother would have, he was talking about that.